Thanks, Joe. We've heard from the wind side. We're now going to hear from the sun side of things. Bob Solger will talk to us, and Bob is with the Solar Design Studio. Get your little puppy going there. And
thanks, Greg.
There you go.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's certainly an exciting forum, following a great bunch of folks who are really passionate about the issues and potential solutions. What I want to share with you is a little bit about the state of solar, but I have to give a little plug for one of the other endeavors I'm in. I founded the Energy Savings Store over 8 years ago and sold it last year. I'm doing a couple things. One is I have a little consulting business, Solar Design Studio, but also the Renewable Energy Program Coordinator out at State Fair Community College in Sedalia. It's a new program that the college is putting together with a focus on solar, wind, and biomass energy, offering certificates and degrees much in the same way Dan's program is. But a point I wanted to share with you all is that there's an establishment of something referred to as Missouri's Energy Corridor that Governor Nixon has declared from Sedalia to Kansas City along Highway 50 is going to be the energy corridor for Missouri. And that's pretty exciting. The president of the State Fair Community College, she's really out actively promoting the fact that they're in Sedalia. The college there is going to be one of the anchors in coming west. So when you start taking a closer look at what's going on out from Sedalia to Kansas City, there are actually several employers along Highway 50 that are in the renewable energy business. But so that's something that's happening in our backyard. And here of late, here in the Kansas City area, we've had a wind turbine manufacturer move in, Nordic Wind Power. Their focus is on the community wind market. They're moving into the old American Airlines facilities up by the airport. So I believe Mark had something to do with attracting them to Kansas City. So there are, as Joe's touched upon, in the energy storage business, there's a company in Lee Summit that's a startup. There are local companies that have retooled themselves to focus on either the wind or solar business, and in terms of building components in the state of Missouri. So there's things happening on a local basis. But from a solar perspective, in terms of employment, by the year 2015, the national organization, Solar Energy Industries Association, SEIA, is projecting 500,000 jobs in solar alone. We a similar number by 2013, but something that's also interesting, and we don't talk about much, is in the biomass arena, specifically in the state of Missouri and even Kansas. There are opportunities for biofuels or biomass, and we hear a bit about ethanol, but there are needs to build over 500 biorefineries, which drive jobs. So these are some things that are starting, that are actually happening today. But what I wanted to move on into is actually solar PV market trends. So in terms of solar is a growing industry in this country. And Joe made the point that we invented it and then we gave it away in turn. But parts of the solar market we can't give away, and that's related to installation of solar systems, both on a residential, commercial, industrial, and utility scale in this country. We've seen tremendous growth in the last few years. Just between 2009 and last year, over 60% growth, where we installed 878 megawatts of solar in this country alone. It's a $6 billion market as of last year, and it's growing this year. The top 10 states, of course, California is up there, but there's actually quite a bit happening here in the Midwest as well, and I've got a slide that's going to touch upon that. As you begin to segment the market, in effect, where's the growth and where are the jobs? And this is specific to last year. Well, residential has been a large part of the market, but there's been a shift into light commercial or the non-residential market as we moved through last year. Prior to that, a lot of the growth was in the residential market, and now you're seeing more and more in utility scale. And specifically, towards the end of last year, we had more solar coming on in the utility side as well as commercial side. And the reason being, that's driven by federal incentives that have been put in place. Back in 2008, the creation of the solar investment tax credits and changes to some of the depreciation schedules. Couple that with local states' renewable energy standards, incentives have been driving the market the last couple of years in particular. And when President Obama signed the Stimulus Act in February of 2009, in terms of that created also a program that offered grants in lieu of tax credits, which has further helped the solar markets grow. So specifically here, though, in the Midwest, as we look at capacity, and this is just renewables all lumped together, I'd like to point out that we have Missouri on this chart in terms of, we've got a lot of wind, as we know, the wind farms up in the northwest part of the state, quite a bit of biomass. And when we talk about biomass in this state, of course, ethanol is one thing we talk about. But landfill gas is a big area that we don't talk much about. Just in Missouri, there's 200 landfills that have been identified as sources that can be converted to landfill gas for energy production, of which 100 are immediate good candidates. And it really takes about 5 years for a landfill to become good to produce methane that you can harvest and utilize to produce electricity. But solar is coming on strong in Missouri because of the hard work of the folks that pushed Prop C through a couple years ago that Carla touched upon, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. So the trends now specific to solar, prices are coming down, which is quite important in terms of the markets developing and being consistent. And when we talk about the price of solar coming down, the metric that everybody uses in the industry is price per watt or dollar per watt. And decreases in 2009, we saw a significant decrease over 2008 of 30% plus. In 2010, we saw price decreases at the end of the year, really about 20% less than the previous year. And this is coupled with equipment costs, materials, and labor. So the trends are down, specifically with manufacturers. Every year, manufacturers look at ways to wring out costs associated with producing product. Well, the goal is to reduce manufacturing costs by 5% for manufacturers. That's a rule of thumb. So we're to the point that we're seeing in our local markets here, the installation cost of solar being about $6 a watt in the commercial arena. Residential will be a little higher because of mobilization costs and so forth. But so the trend is coming down. Again, that's the key point across the board. Something that's talked about in the solar industry is something called the levelized cost of energy, or grid parity, if you like that term. It's the cost to produce a kilowatt hour of electricity with solar, comparing it to buying it from the utility or producing it with coal. And the target number is actually 12 cents a kilowatt hour. The solar industry believes we'll hit grid parity by 2015, if not sooner, on a national basis, just using national numbers. But if you look at the cost of solar over the life of solar, that cost per kilowatt hour, that cost of energy, because when we buy electricity from our utilities, we're buying kilowatt hours. Today it's under 3 cents. In some cases it's under 2 cents. which is huge. And when you look at it, when we talk about the life of a system, that's 25 to 30 years, because these systems last that long. Solar has no moving parts, it's all electric, and it has an inverter, which is an intelligent electronic device. So again, the key point is the trend's down in terms of system cost to install, and then the cost of producing energy over its lifetime. Employment by subsector, related to installation, that's where a lot of the jobs are being created, both locally and on a national basis. Manufacturing, there are companies that actually manufacture solar panels in the United States. They're not all coming out of China, but there are manufacturers that have set up shop here. In the Midwest, there's a couple of local manufacturers. One out of Minnesota is a startup that's about 3 years old, and their name is 10K Solar. They're producing a commercial solar PV system. So that's just a localized example of a Midwest manufacturer, but the installation jobs remain locally. You cannot export those jobs anyplace because you need people to design, procure, install, and maintain systems. And these are good jobs that we're talking about. This industry employment going into or through last year was approaching close to 100,000. This year, the projections based on the Solar Foundation census is close to 120,000 jobs. And it's real important for those of us that are affiliated with education of training people like Dan and myself and others that jobs be created, because what we get measured on is not only training people, but the jobs that they get and that they keep. And that's key. Local jobs, and there are good jobs. So the trends are up. And here's a breakdown of solar employment by region. And you see this little part called the lower Midwest. We got 7% of the pie now, which is a plus. So a couple years ago when I looked at this chart, it was not even a sliver. So things are trending in a positive fashion for solar in our part of the country. So that's a plus. Some top 10 states for solar employment. It's a little list that's different from what I showed before, because it captured this. But I want to point out Michigan. Michigan's further north than we are. We got better solar resource here, both in Missouri and Kansas. So, and what's driving things in Michigan is the incentive package that has been created with public policy and the establishment of a renewable energy standard. But in turn, keep in mind that those incentives won't be there forever, and I can't help but chuckling, and perhaps some of you heard this when Secretary Chu was testifying before the House Energy Committee, not the Senate, but the House. They asked him a question about how long should renewable solar and wind be subsidized, and he just casually said 80, 90 years, just like coal and oil. So, but again here, as Carla touched upon in some detail, and she'll certainly elaborate on more, she's an expert in this area with policy, it's very important to have our local legislatures enact legislation which results in policies that are going to drive the markets in the short term until we get to that point about levelized cost of energy. Often I'm asked about the solar career path and in terms of what are the opportunities. Well, with any career, you start out with entry-level positions, but where you go, there are from entry-level positions to specialized to people that get into the installation side of things and supervisory and management roles to sales side of things, and eventually starting their own companies. The solar industry, in terms of, does offer opportunities for people to get good paying jobs with growth opportunities going forward. Much in the same way today you see a lot of HVAC companies that have been around for years and years. In terms of the solar industry, I believe will evolve that way. And some points as far as trends in the industry. Today, in terms of, there's a lot of stuff that comes in from China, and it is stuff. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good. But there's a trend in terms of supplying complete systems from manufacturers, a term that's called vertical integrated manufacturing. There's a focus, as I said before, on energy production in terms of kilowatt hours, providing safe systems. But what's really becoming more of an issue is safety, particularly making solar arrays fire safe. There's been a few incidences of fires caused that have been somewhat attributed to solar. It's not the solar panels, it's actually the way they've been installed. And in terms of the type of or the quality of labor that was used to install systems on flat roofs in particular, actually caused fires due to short circuits. But equipment that's designed in terms of the trends now are to design systems that are a lot safer and fire safe, because there's a lot of effort with, particularly now the International Fire Code is beginning to address solar on roofs. And again, the trends are lower cost per watt, dollar per watt as being one of the key metrics. But to summarize, in terms of solar in Missouri, in terms of what's happened, when I started my company 8 years ago, there were 4 companies in the business, integration companies in the state. Today, there are over 43 solar companies in Missouri creating jobs, which estimated employment of 300 plus. Today, here in this room, we have a few representatives from companies. Kevin Good, Good Energy. Bill Vaughn from the Solar Pros of Kansas City. A young man, Jeff Simpson, who works for an electrical distributor that's selling solar PV systems. And Jeff's an old solar pioneer from Kansas for years. But a lot of things have changed and continue to change with respect to the industry, and that's due in part to, again, legislation and policy. And in Missouri, MOSIA, the Missouri Solar Energy Industry Association, is pushing very hard on legislation, and Carl will talk specifically to that. With enabling legislation in Missouri, MOSIA is projecting 4,500 jobs over the next 10 years. And we're talking about good paying jobs for folks that live here. So from a MOSIA perspective, because I am on the board of that too, is one of my part-time jobs, we welcome your support to continue the quest as well. So with that, welcome questions and everything. So Greg, you're up.